Since the beginning, humanity has looked up, at the stars, at the moon, at the vast silent dark beyond our atmosphere, and wondered what was out there. In 1969, we stopped wondering. Humans walked on another world. It was the most audacious thing our species had ever done. Proof that the universe was not merely something to observe, but something to reach. Today, the dream has grown bolder. Not just the moon, Mars, permanent colonies, a backup for humanity itself, the greatest adventure ever imagined. But while we plan our escape, the planet we are escaping from is changing faster than at any point in human history. And someone needs to ask the question no one wants to answer. Is space really the answer? Or is it the most expensive distraction ever built? Space science is not a luxury. It never has been. The James Webb Space Telescope has rewritten our understanding of the early universe. The Voyager probes, launched in 1977, have now left the solar system entirely, the furthest human-made objects in existence. The International Space Station has hosted continuous human presence off Earth for over 25 years. And the technology born from our hunger for the cosmos has transformed life on Earth in ways most people never think about. Solar panels, first refined for satellite power. GPS, reliant on those very satellites. Space science gave us the tools to understand our own planet, track deforestation from orbit, to measure ice loss to the centimeter, to see for the first time what we were doing to our atmosphere. The science of space has always come back to Earth. Remember that, because what comes next is not an argument against space science. It is an argument against something else entirely. In the first 165 seconds of a rocket launch, 116 tons of CO2 is released into the atmosphere. Not over a day, not over a flight, over 165 seconds. And rocket pollution is unique. It doesn't disperse at ground level. It is deposited in a concentrated form across multiple layers of the atmosphere, including the stratosphere, where it threatens the ozone layer that protects all life on Earth from UV radiation. In 1987, the Montreal Protocol banned substances that deplete the ozone layer. Rockets were exempted. In 2025, there were 324 orbital rocket launches worldwide, nearly one per day. That is more than double the number from just 5 years earlier. Some projections suggest that the number could multiply by a factor of 10 within 2 decades. At that scale, rocket emissions alone could account for over 2% of global greenhouse gas output by today's standards. And the company driving that acceleration are not doing it quietly. SpaceX, Blue Origin, Virgin Galactic, an industry worth hundreds of billions of dollars, built in a large part on a single idea. The idea that Earth is a problem to be escaped. Mars has no magnetic field, no breathable atmosphere, surface temperatures that can drop to minus 150, radiation levels that are life-threatening. Every single thing required to keep a human alive would need to be manufactured and transported across a minimum of 35 million miles. There are 8 billion people on Earth. Elon Musk has spoken of a self-sustaining city of 1 million people on Mars by 2050. 1 million. That is 0.0125% of humanity. SpaceX's own projections estimate a ticket at $350,000. In the most optimistic scenario, the median global income is roughly $10,000 a year. The people who will suffer most from a warming Earth are not the ones who will ever see the stars up close. The entire history of human spaceflight has put 650 people into orbit. 650 in 60 years. That is not a plan for humanity. It is a plan for a version of humanity that has never really existed. There's a subtler cost, one that doesn't show up in the emissions data. Climate action requires a collective belief that this world is worth saving, that the problem is solvable, that the future is here, not somewhere else. The escape narrative quickly erodes that belief. The International Energy Agency estimates the world needs to invest $4.5 trillion per year in clean energy by 2030 to avoid warming the Earth more than 1.5 degrees Celsius. We are currently on track to invest around $2 trillion. The gap between where we are and where we need to be is not a gap of technology. is a gap of will, and every hour spent imagining a door marked exit is an hour not spent walking through the wall marked solution. Space science has pointed us towards technology that can fix this planet. The engineers who figured out how to keep humans alive in the most hostile environment imaginable are the same people who can make this one worth living in. And the space industry itself is beginning to reckon with its own footprint. Startups are developing sustainable fuels that reduce launch emissions by up to 90%. The industry knows what it needs to do. The science of space is extraordinary. The fantasy of abandoning Earth is dangerous. The difference matters. We live on a planet with liquid water, breathable air, and a sun directly at the right distance. Mars has none of those things. Earth, even a warming Earth, is orders of magnitude more hospitable than anywhere else we have ever found. 4 billion years. That's how long Mars has been waiting for life. If any life came, it didn't stay. We are not a species that ran out of the planet. We are a species that for the first time in our history has the knowledge, the technology, and if we choose it, the will to protect the one we have. The mission was never to find somewhere else to go. The mission, the harder, longer, more urgent, more human mission, is to stay. This is independent reporting for a better planet. No corporate agendas, just the facts. If you value climate news that is free and accessible to everyone, subscribe to Studio Amp. It's totally free and takes a second for you, but it keeps us making content that matters. Or watch another video. YouTube thinks you'll love one of these. Join the mission at climatenewsmedia.com. Thanks for watching.